6:30. I'd like to call to order the Shenandoah County School Board. This meeting is a work session and dedicated to the final budget adoption. And the first thing I think we'll do is ask the superintendent if she has a recommendation for a closed session.
I do. I recommend that the Shenandoah County School Board convene a closed meeting under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act in order to discuss and consider several personnel matters involving the assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salary, discipline, or resignation under Virginia Code 2.2-3711A14.
Thank you, Dr. Shepherd. Do I have a motion to that effect?
I move that the Shenandoah County School Board convene a closed meeting under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act in order to discuss and consider several personnel matters, including the assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salary, discipline, or resignation under Virginia Code 2.2-3711A14.
A second.
Okay, the motion has been made by Mr. Gutschall and seconded by Mrs. Rutz. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will reconvene when the meeting is over. It may be before 7, but as soon as we're completed, we will reconvene back here.
All right, how you doing? Good.
7:02. So we're going to re-adjourn in open session. Do I have a motion to do just that?
I move to reconvene in open session.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we convene in open session. If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Then we are going to move into our certification for a closed meeting. The Shenandoah County School Board hereby certifies by roll call vote that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies. And two, only such business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Shenandoah County School Board. Each member responds I so certify when called. And Ms. Jett, would you call the roll?
Mr. Street?
I so certify.
Ms. Carlidio?
I so certify.
Mr. Gutschall?
I so certify.
Ms. Rooks?
I so certify.
Mr. Ricker?
I so certify.
And Mr. Barlow?
I so certify. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as has been presented?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Gutschall and a second by Mr. Street to approve the agenda as presented. And based on that, we are going to move into our, go ahead. Oh, well, we need to vote on that too. Okay, you can do that. So I'd like to have a motion that we,
It's been said.
Roll.
We just vote.
Yeah.
okay, we just, okay.
I vote.
So all in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Thank you, by the way. And we will work in number 3, the work session itself. And the first item, 3.1, are the proposed adjustments to the fiscal year 2025 budget. Dr. Shepherd.
Thank you. So at the April 16th Board of Supervisors meeting, the Board of Supervisors appropriated $35,031,110 for operations, which is $620,000 less than we requested, and they approved $465,059 for technology, which is what we asked for, and they approved $3,323,564 for capital improvement, which is $578,676 less than we requested. So my recommendation for a decrease for the operational budget, where we need to find $620,000, is to decrease the cost of living adjustment by 0.25%. So that would go from 3.5% to 3.25%, which is approximately $170,000 savings. Decrease employer contributions to health insurance, which is a $250,000 savings. Employee contribution will stay the same for employees and employee only and employee plus spouse, but the participants on Key Care 1000 employee contributions will decrease for employee plus child and employee plus family. And you'll see those decreases here during the health insurance part of the meeting. I recommend to remove the request for 3 floater custodians, which is $155,000 savings. This is something that is needed. However, it's not something that we currently have, so it's not like we're going to miss it, but it is definitely one of those requests that you will likely see again next year if you vote to approve this recommendation. And then decrease current software budget by $45,000 in those 3 particular pieces of software: Kami, BrainPop, and Book Creator. So we did a staff survey on our budget, and you will notice this first slide is the number of staff who participated in the survey. About 58% of the respondents were teachers, 13.2% were paraprofessionals. And if you need to know any of the other percentages in between, I have that. The survey said 61% preferred a cost of living, a 2.35, this is the old numbers, 2.35 cost of living adjustment with a step. About 39% said they would like a 3.5% COLA. We had 523 responses, and that is roughly half of our staff. Also, the staff survey asked about whether employees would want a salary reduction. If the school board had to reduce the proposal, would they like a salary reduction to the division to reduce the contribution to health insurance, or a combination? And you will see that gold at 41.3% was the majority, and that was a combination of the salary increase and contribution to the health insurances, which is what I recommended. So if we went with what the majority requested for the pay increase, you will see where we fall. If you go with my recommendation of 3.25%, you will notice where the categories fall here on this chart. So teachers would be at a 3.2% with a 2.1% COLA plus a step. Athletic trainers would be at 3.14. You have your admin there, anywhere from 2.85 to 3.07. You parapros are at 3.6%, clerical 1 and 2, 3.8 and 3.85. I won't read them all. I do want to highlight bus drivers at 3.1%. Any questions about anything from the operational budget? So my recommendations going back, my recommendations were decrease the cost of living by 0.25%, decrease employer contribution by 250 to health insurance, 250,000, remove requests for 3 FLUR custodians, and then decrease current software budget. Any questions about that part? And then we'll move on to the capital. Thoughts?
Now, we are going to be voting on this under action items tonight. So if you have any questions, this is the time to ask.
I really hate to see us to go backwards on the health insurance after we've worked the last 2 years. I mean, that's been such a topic of conversation, and to go back that.
So it's not going to go backwards. It's just not going to go as far forward as we had anticipated. So our employee plus family was, and I'm going with Key Care 1000 with comprehensive dental, because that's what I always use to demonstrate, is going from 913 to 803. So there's still a little over $100 savings there. It's not at the 675 number that I had wanted it to go to. So we're still moving a little forward, or staying static, but not moving backwards. We're not going to $1,249 either, where we were 2 years ago.
And does this, where does this put us as far as the support specialists? Is this with just 6? Is this
6 of the 9? 6 of the 9 are in this current recommendation. Okay, let me. All right, and then the recommendation to decrease the capital budget, you'll notice, is to decrease bus purchases by 3 buses of around $368,000, or $369,000, and then remove the retrofitting of the stadium lighting at Central High School to fiscal year 2026. So at 210, and that would be the budget decrease that we needed in our capital. And I'll just move forward so you can see the things that are left in the capital projects.
We're going to be able to replace the fire alarms for $132,000 for all 3 schools?
So Mr. Orts is here, replace the fire alarms.
It's just the head end, it's just the, that's the parts that are no longer available, so simply remove the part that's in the main office, everything else will work with that.
For $132,000? That'll cover all 3 schools?
Yeah.
Okay.
And remember, some of these projects are multi-year projects, so.
Are we redoing the press box at Central still?
I think that comes later, so yeah.
The playgrounds,
Still there,
we're going to be able to move on that this year?
still there. So you'll see I crossed through $1 million and added $631,224. That's my recommendation. The renovation of the bus garage is a multi-year project. It's going to cost well over $200,000, but that's to get the project started.
So how many buses are we purchasing now?
So that would be 5,
5 buses.
yes. And we had 8.
Mm-hmm.
They're about 125,000 a piece, is that right? Yeah. And then here's your press box and sound system at Central. You'll notice that I took out the stadium lighting at Central, but it's still there at Strasburg.
Oh, the covered walkway, that going to happen this year? Do we have PA system out there in that new gym yet?
Yes, that got done last year.
Any question about their thoughts about capital? So here are the major highlights of the fiscal year 2025 budget. It's in our budget book, but a 3.25% cost of living adjustment, and it's a little less than $2 million. Allocate funding for 5.5% health insurance increase, and then our employer contribution towards healthcare premiums, additional instructional positions and services, fund positions and services paid for by CARES funding, which includes the 6 of the 9 student support specialists, increased driver education instructor pay, and I have to correct myself. Mr. Rickard said that he talked to a driver's ed instructor and they said they only make like $15 an hour, and he was absolutely correct. They are currently only making $15.64 an hour or something like that, and it's going to increase them to $35 an hour, which is what we pay our teachers when they do after-school activities. So, increase inflationary costs, fuel, heating, cooling, and then capital. You'll remember that on the pie graph on the right, about 90% of our expenses are people. And then on the graph on the graph on the left, you'll notice that chart on the left, you'll notice that instruction is 75% of our budget. So some major highlights of the fiscal year 2025 budget. The Board of Supervisors adopted their budget on Tuesday, April the 16th. On Wednesday, April the 17th, the General Assembly met and did not act on any of the governor's amendments to the budget bill. So they are going to meet in a special session to work out the differences. The special session is on May the 13th with a vote for the budget on May the 15th. We took a conservative state number, so we feel like we're comfortable with the number that we have here for state. But you'll see that the state is 48 million, 48.6 million. Federal is a little less than 1.4 million. Other is 343,000. Our operation is 35 million. County technology is 465,000, and then county capital is 3.3 million. Total operating is 89 million. And then on the next slide, you will see that the state funds almost 55%. County funds are 39.3%. That's on the far right. And you can see where we've went over the last 6 years, where our budget has been the last 6 years. Federal is 1.5%. Questions? And then I have another presentation on health insurance that we'll get to.
We're ready?
Okay. So on the action agenda is health insurance as well. And at the very top is the 2024-2025 proposed health insurance rates, and at the bottom is the 23-24 health insurance rates. So I'm actually going to go to the next slide here in just a minute, let you look at this for just a second. But I think the next slide will show it better. So our proposed, we would like to move to Anthem, but here's the comprehensive Key Care 1000, and you'll notice for employee only, in Frederick County and Rockingham County, that's their this year's number. So we're comparing with what they have currently. We do not know what their next year's numbers are going to be, but you'll see that we're doing well with employee only. Employee child, we're in between the two, in between Frederick and Rockingham. Employee plus children, we're still a little more expensive, but we're not at $1,250 as we were a couple of years ago. And then you have employee plus spouse. We're a little lower than the Frederick and Rockingham, and then employee plus family. And then this slide will show you where we've come from the 22-23 school year to the 2024-25. So you'll notice that this preventative dental and then comprehensive dental is below that, but you'll notice that employee only increased slightly, but the employee plus child reduced from $504 to $235 over those couple year period. I think that's a phenomenal effort to decrease healthcare premiums. You'll see our Our employee plus family at $1,184, reduced to $731. The one I always use to compare is the comprehensive dental down there. So you'll see from $1,250 down to $803. So we've made some great gains over the last couple of years. So even though I would have liked to have done what we proposed originally, I think this is a step in the right direction. Questions on health insurance? All right, Chairman Barlow, I am
Yep, you ready for?
finished, yes.
All right. Dr. Heingardner, you're going to give us some policy updates?
Yes, sir. In front of you at this time is the policy updates from the last meeting. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have if you've had a chance to look over those, or if I need to do some research on some, I'd be happy to do that as well. I'm sure that there will be another set coming in sometime in May, usually another round of updates.
When do we have to have our final revisions and?
And we'll seek approval at the next meeting, at your regular scheduled meeting.
The first slug is like in June, though, is that right? But we want to have everything wrapped up tight.
Yes, our goal is to start the school year with, so by the time we start July 1, is when we like to have everything updated.
I'd like to say that this is one of those areas that many divisions around the state are reluctant to do adequately because there are so many policies in play. And I think it's a tribute to this division that the staff under Dr. Heingardner has not only kept us up to speed, but has created some shortcuts and some tools for us to make it work. So it's up to us on the board to make sure we look at these things. He's even trying to highlight those things that might pop out at us, but it's our job to make sure that we go through and make sure if there's anything else there that tickles us, that we take a look at it and have time to talk about it before we have to agree to it in May, June. So again, thanks for that support. And with all that the background for us, we really ought to take advantage of it. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, being so tied up in the budget, I haven't even had time to look at this yet.
And the good news is they're on the last couple of meetings, and Dr. Heingardner has it so that it's highlighted where certain changes, so it's not hard to go through fairly quickly.
Good,
So,
thank you.
yep. And you're also going to tell us about the food service contract.
Yes, I will. You will, that'll be coming to you at your next meeting as well for a renewal, request for a renewal. I placed at your chair a document, has a bar chart at the bottom of it. If we'll look at that side of this paper first, I just wanted to highlight a couple of elements of our food service program just to bring folks up to speed and to remind everyone about Southwest Food Service excellence. 2 years ago, we had went out for RFP, and they came back and they are very, very committed group. One of the byproducts, and if you can see through the notes that I've jotted down there for you, they're a U.S.-based company, but all they do is K-12 food. They're not in universities. Many of these types of companies, they will have diversity, and they might have a custodial company as part of their. It's not just food service. It could be other things. That's not this company. They specialize in K-12 food, and that's all they want to do. So that was that's kind of a highlight. I'll get to a thing we had with them today just to highlight that here in a second. But you can see they serve over 850,000 students across the country every day. They're in 165 school divisions. We were the first school division in Virginia to partner with them, so we felt like that was a little leverage point we had at that moment too, because obviously they want grow their company. They want to move their footprint onto the East Coast. And so we kind of use that as leverage to say, okay, prove to us that you are worthy, and we'll see how you do. So a couple other school divisions have picked them up in Virginia, and I know they're out for RFP with several others currently. They propose and have a 75% of the cooking is scratch cooking. Presentation of food is important to them. They involve students. They've done some of these things here. They've really been getting a foothold in our division, and I think with each year, the idea is that they'll do more and more, and they'll grow more and more into doing a variety of things. 3,000 plus menu choices, that's huge. The fellow that was here today is from Roanoke, and he's a chef from Roanoke, and he did a little in-service with our students today who were cooking. We made salsa and guacamole, and most of these folks had done that before. I wasn't, but I can't wait to cook now, so chef. And nobody lost any. Everybody's fingers were good. But it was awesome. And the chef came and was talking about the company and how they can offer 3,000 different menu choices. And I was kidding him about fixing some great hamburgers, and he said there's probably 30 or 40 or 50 different kinds of hamburgers on the menu that they could, that they have access to those menus. So that's a big part of it. They have a lot of support. They bring training and help our food service employees with training and understanding and learning culinary skills. Of course, they have the backside of their company, helps with operations, procurement of food, and the financial support. And they're very much wanting to be part of the community. I talked with them about potentially having a part in the Shenandoah County Fair, having a food truck there and showing community members what our children are eating in school. I think they would be surprised. So they're looking into that. Their first year they were here, they offered, they provided the food for our all of our staff when we had our convocation. So they fixed lunch for all the staff, and that was nice. I told you about the thing they did today. So they're looking to try and do things in our community. I think they may have fixed some finger foods for one of our board meetings one time also. So they're trying to do some things to give back when they can. And at the second to last bullet, you'll see that SFE in our partnership, the state allows us to operate on a 5-year renewable cycle. So every 5 years we have to go out for RFP, but each contract is only renewable for 1 year. So they're 1-year renewable contracts, and then after 5 years you need to go out for bid. So that's where we are right now. We're finishing our second year. We're happy with them. We believe they've done a very nice job for us. And so a couple other bullet points that are important to know is that, yes, this company is helping manage, and they have access to the many things I've mentioned, but the workers, the ladies who fix the food, we just had a meeting in here last week or week before last with them. These are great people, and they put their heart and soul into cooking meals for our children every day, and they are Shenandoah County Public School employees. So that's an important component to know about that. SFE manages the system, but the workforce, with the exception of one person that they have here to help manage from their side of the house, are Shenandoah County employees. Since we've been with them, our food choices have increased, and our student participation has increased. And as you can see in that last bullet, over 5,000 breakfast and lunches are served on average each day, excuse me, in Shenandoah County Public Schools. And again, that might be 460, 4,960 today, but it might be 5,400 tomorrow. But roughly 5,000 meals are served every day. And you can see by the chart, now let me explain the chart real quick and then I'll be finished. If you look at that bar chart and then you look at the legend over on the right, if you see the yellow color where it says 2020, 2021, you don't see that yellow bar in that chart. It's actually there, but it's so tiny, it's down. That was what we all know, and as the year of COVID, there were records weren't kept for that particular year. So that's why it's a blank space there. But it's important to know that when you look at it, it's not missing information, it was just information that wasn't collected. But then when you look at 21, 22, the year after, when we came back, the state took care of the food cost, so there was no charge for meals. And so the dark blue, you can see, goes up a little bit. That bar goes up a little bit from those previous blank space and then those 3 years prior. But then look at the green bar. The green bar, we started CEP, which means all students got free meals, which really wasn't any different from the year before, but it's also the year we started with SFE. So look at that green bar and see how much higher it is than previous. And then the blue, the light blue bar is current as of February. So you can see that every year they're serving more and more students. More and more students are participating in the food service program. So that's our ultimate goal. We want kids eating, and like we talked about today, we want them eating healthy food and food that tastes good, excuse me, and food that looks good. If it doesn't look good, they're not going to even try it. So we talk a lot about the presentation of the food. Over on the back, you'll see that presentation. Those aren't cherry-picked pictures from the internet. Those are pictures of the food that our food service employees have made, and I thought that was pretty good depiction of our school food today. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. Excuse me. With regards to this, but what you'll see at your next meeting will be a request to renew for another year with SFE.
I hope you're not planning to be one of their marketeers. That's a pretty good pitch.
Well, we're pleased right now, but we want to keep getting better. We want to keep, every year we get a little bit better.
The work with our local vendors and farmers, et cetera.
I'm so glad, yes.
Or is that-
I'm so glad you mentioned that, and that's something I should have definitely made sure of. That is definitely a focus of theirs, and it's a focus of ours to encourage that to happen. There are so many rules and regulations around what can be served. However, there are ways that can be managed, and I know last year they were able to use some onions from a local farmer, and they were also able to use apples from local apple orchards around the area. So we're definitely pushing that, and they know that's important to us and are trying to do that as well.
Is this self-funded again?
Yes.
This coming year? Have you heard any complaints from any of the other school divisions in Virginia that's using them?
I'll tell you, I've gotten a request. I've gotten three requests from other divisions for a reference for them. One thing that I really liked is I called off the reference sheet when we were looking for these and tried to find some school divisions that weren't on their reference list and call them and ask. And one superintendent said they weren't the cheapest in the RFP process, but they already had SFE, and he said, but our board said we're not changing. I don't care if there is a cheaper company, we're staying with them. And that, he didn't have to tell me that, and he, like I said, he wasn't on their list of people to call, so I thought he was being pretty straight up with us.
I judge by my two boys, and they seem happy with it.
I was gonna say, the year before you guys started this, I was having to make my son his lunches because he hated the food, and then all of a sudden, I don't have to make him lunches anymore, and he said he really liked the food here, so it goes a long
Yeah,
way.
it was definitely a noticeable
Yeah.
change.
All right. 3.5, request from the Coalition for Better Schools to restore school names.
So policy FFA, school name, states it is the responsibility of the Shenandoah County School Board to determine the name of schools, school facilities, and areas of school facilities or grounds in the division. The board will solicit and accept input from the public regarding the names of schools or school facilities, but reserves the right to make the final decision regarding the name of any school or school facility. Suggestions regarding the name of a school or school facility must be in writing, must state the name of the person or group making the suggestion, and must state the reasons supporting the suggestion. The policy goes on to say the procedure for renaming a school or school facility will be the same as the procedure outlined above. The entire policy on school names is attached to this agenda item. On Wednesday, April the 3rd, members of the school board received a request from the Coalition for Better Schools to consider restoring the original names of Mountain View High School and Honey Run Elementary School. There was consensus from the school board members to add this item to the April 11th agenda. The request from the Coalition of Better Schools to restore school names will be discussed at tonight's meeting.
No action tonight. Is it also a discussion and action item for May? Or
It is just an action item for
an
me.
action item? So
Yes.
So the vote is scheduled for the May 9th school board meeting. But we're open for discussion now. Mike?
I'll start. As you all know, we've received tons and tons of email from people all across this county about the name change, some for, some against. Our last board meeting, we had compelling arguments on both sides. I just want to put it out there from myself. I believe it's a choice of the District 1 and District 2 voters. They're the ones at that end of the county. I represent District 6, Strasburg. If we were changing the name of one of the Strasburg schools, I believe the only folks that should have a say in that is at the northern end of the county. I will say that I was given a ton of information that was shared with you guys tonight. I knew of some of this prior, and I find it interesting that the prior superintendent on June the 10th put out an email to all staff that stated he didn't believe that the name of the schools mattered as much as the culture of the school, and also said that the culture at Stonewall Jackson was one of the most successful schools in the county, had the most dual enrollment kids. And then we go on to see more emails that a District 2 voter FOIA'd. And we see that all this took place during COVID, behind closed doors, emails going back and forth, to the point that superintendent was even pulling strings and telling school board members how they were to vote on the subject. If we decide to go back, I see it as right and a wrong, and giving the public an opportunity again. If they want to change the names, do it the right way. I will add that I'm not going to get into the emails. I'm not going to point fingers and name names, but if anybody'd like to see this, I'd be happy to share it with them after tonight. It's public information.
Other comments?
Well, I'll just kind of second Mike. I agree. I think when, and I don't know if you can tell me, or if you know, when we built Signal Knob Middle School, I'm almost certain that naming that school fell to the northern campus communities. I mean, that's what our policy says.
It's in the early 90s.
It was in the early 90s, yes. And so, you know, with this here, it's interesting. it's not an easy decision. I mean, you know, the arguments on both sides are compelling. I agree with you. And I take compassion on both sides of the issue. There's a Virginia Supreme Court case that just came up in the past year about I think it's Mod Z out of Fairfax. And, you know, I can remember sitting in this room during a school board meeting. We had just gotten we were still in COVID, still social distancing, but, you know, we sat in here with masks and we sit around the room spaced out six feet from each other. And I remember the chair coming to me. I was on the list to speak. We had been in the room for, I don't know, 45 minutes or so. And came to me and said, you know, if you want to address the board, because your name's on there, you're going to have to step outside and call in. And I looked at her and I said, are you out of your mind? And she's like, no, that's the rules. And it's interesting because I didn't speak because I thought it was stupid. That, you know, we had already shared the room full of germs for the last 45 minutes. But I did not know enough about open meeting laws and FOIA to realize that that was a violation of my rights to ask me to leave a meeting, to call in. Mod Z was one of those things that Fairfax County had decided to change a planning commission, you know, a planning development plan in Fairfax. And they did it during an electronic meeting during COVID. And under COVID rules, when you suspend open, you know, meetings for electronic meetings, the only thing that was supposed to happen during those meetings were business that kept the doors open, kept the lights paid. That was it. Anything that could wait, that wasn't essential at the time, wasn't supposed to be done, because part of government and transparency is to let your constituents have comments, to be part of the process, and to do that. And, you know, the Virginia Supreme Court ended up rolling back Mod Z's, told them they had to toss it because they had violated the continuity, of what that was supposed to be doing at the time. It was an essential business. That's what electronic meetings were for. This did the exact same thing. The notice for the meeting went up on a Friday afternoon, I think about 3:30, 3:45. During a holiday weekend, the school was closed on Monday, and which gave you 3 days of Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And it was done in a vote. There's been rumor that even with the electronic meetings, that there were things, people muted. There were things done. And I looked through some of this stuff. There's one particular one that kind of catches my eye that I find I had forgotten about from 3 years ago. And it says, just got off the phone with Shelby and Andrew. Both are firmly in the yes category for renaming. Shelby is ready to do it in July. Andrew is hesitant about the timing because he worries that the public will be angry that we rushed it through without giving them the chance to weigh in. I joked it only took 4 days for the whole county to know about the reopening plan, and he laughed. In the end, he was tore between July and August, and Shelby suggested that we check with the attorneys to make sure that whether rushing it has any implications. I told them about the rumor about Brad bringing suit against us, and Shelby thought maybe Lindsay should be aware of that and take in consideration even if there's no truth to it. So there was obvious thought process and push to get this done as quickly as possible, to avoid what we've done for the last 2 years, and that's hear from hundreds of people. A year and a half ago, this board, members of this board pushed for a survey, and the other members, basically said we didn't want to be held to what the survey results might be. That's what I was told. Again, we went back and forth between whether the whole county or whatever, and we had some political games on the board that we ended up not doing the survey, and the motion failed. For me, does the ends justify the means? I have a problem with that. I have a problem thinking that while it's a touchy subject and it's not going to make everybody happy, to do things the way we did and the way that it was done was a wrong. It just was wrong.
Well, I said it a couple years ago, and I'll say it again. The real issue with it is the public, like Brandy said, was not involved. And I believe, and I said it 2 years ago, that if a survey was conducted then and the results came back to change the names, the Southern campus would have been upset, frustrated, but they would have dealt with it and moved on with life. But instead, we know what happened. And, just going through these emails, it's frustrating because you know that it could have been prevented. It could have been done correctly if it was going to be done. There's just so much about sneaking it through and concern with attracting outsiders. I think, the concern in reality was upsetting the citizens of the county, which I think is something you should be worried about instead of, putting it on outsiders. Because I really don't think outsiders were the issue at that point. It was people in the county that were obviously frustrated with it. But, you just go through these emails and it was completely rushed. We all know by now, it's been well documented, that is what happened, unfortunately. It's caused a lot of divide in our county. Again, if it was done correctly, there would have been frustrations, but we would have moved on. But this was during, obviously, when the tragic death of George Floyd occurred. It became a movement around the country to begin doing this. You can go online. I've actually researched. There's a website dedicated to documenting the schools during the period of 2020, during the summer of 2020, that went through the renaming process. Different states, Virginia, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee. It gives you all the data, and it's all these changes are right during that summer of 2020, after that tragic event with George Floyd. So, they were on a timeline. They wanted to get moving, and obviously it was during COVID when Ms. Rutt said you couldn't even really participate. If they just took a step back and slowed down and thought about what they were doing, it would have at least involved the community. Now, do I think it would have changed their mind? No, because they had their minds made up, obviously, because they didn't listen to, at the time, which I would characterize as probably countywide, 60 to 70% of the county would have probably not been in favor of this. I'm just throwing those numbers out there. That's just an estimation. But here we are 4 years later. This is now we talked about it 2 years ago. Here we are again. It's definitely frustrating, but when you have a broken process like this, and it has to do with something that people grew up, part of their identity, I can understand it. I didn't go to those schools, so I don't have that same connection, but I do understand that when you have something taken away from you and you feel like is an unethical and unfair process, I can see the frustrations as well. There's no doubt in my mind that even no matter what anyone says, what any survey says, that if you ask the people, at least in District 1 and 2, a majority, 51% or more, is going to say they want the names restored. Now, does that mean the rest of the county believes that? Not necessarily. And I know Mr. Ricker made the point about District 1 and 2 making that decision. I don't necessarily completely agree with that. I believe it's important, and they're obviously the main people that are affected by this. But I think it's still important to hear everyone's thoughts, and that's why this was such a disaster in the first place, is no one was heard. And we know that multiple surveys have gone out, the one by the coalition, which I believe was just D1 and D2, maybe some D3 as well. And then I became aware over the weekend, not because I received anything, but it seemed like everybody else did. I don't think any board members received anything directly via cell phone. I know they were calling landlines and asking, number one was, what's your, do you approve of the performance of the school board? And it's kind of funny. I'd say the elections over the last 2 to 4 years and the margins have spoken there, but that's a different conversation. So there's surveys all around. The thing that gets me about that is, like Ms. Rutz mentioned, we wanted to do a survey 2 years ago. We thought we were good to go on it. We could have had our answers then and been done with it, and we didn't go down that route, unfortunately. 4 years ago, man, a survey would have been helpful.
That was the time for the survey.
Wouldn't that have been to take a step back and let it go a couple months? Mr. Keller talked about in those, the emails, wait till August at least, give it a couple months. Didn't happen, unfortunately, and that's where we are. So it's there's a lot of hypocrisy in this whole thing, because now suddenly everyone wants to do surveys. And there's got to be these certain requirements or they have no validity. I just, to me now doing all these surveys, it's kind of like, where were we 4 years ago? Where were we 2 years ago? Now suddenly we want to ask the public and then nitpick because the requirements aren't how some people think they should be. I don't think you should put all your eggs into any survey because you just never know. But to me now, starting to talk about surveys again, especially because we haven't put out a survey. None of these surveys have been by the school board, I want to point out. Now to do it is kind of funny. And to put certain requirements on it is even funnier. So those are my thoughts. Again, District 4 is a lot different than District 1 and 2. That's something I want to point out. I've received a lot of feedback, and to be honest, I have not received much support from my district to restore the names. Now that's just different, different people. Nobody, most likely, or not many people from District 4 went to the southern campus, so like me, they don't have that same attachment, but that doesn't mean that it's not important. There's a real attachment to those schools. They've always believed, and I think rightfully so, that they've been treated unfairly, which even, anybody can kind of point out. If you've been around the county for years, you can see that the southern campus is always, for whatever reason, kind of, gotten less treatment or not as good as Strasburg and Central. But I can understand the frustrations, and I just hope that whatever decision we come to, it's kind of the end. Obviously, the point I would make is when we're long gone, 6, 8, however years from now, and a school board that is more pro changing names of things comes along, what's stopping them from changing them right back? I don't know. That's something we have to think about. So again, I don't support changing names of things. And if you're going to, you have to check with the community. And that wasn't done here. So like it's been made before, Peter Muhlenberg, that's in my district, it's funny that there's never been an argument to change that name. I don't know why. Obviously Stonewall Jackson, more prominent of an individual. But anyway, those are my thoughts. We'll see where we go from here. And obviously, we received feedback on that one survey from the coalition. I think it's kind of being made out that we're putting all of our thoughts into one survey and, we're using that to vote on this. I don't agree with that. I think we're all independent thinkers and we can look at things from our perspective. We've heard nothing from this other survey that went out over the weekend. I don't know. I don't think they identified themselves, so I don't know who they are, the affiliation. So we'll see what happens there. But, moral of the story, if it was done right, we wouldn't be here talking about it today. It's unfortunate, and we're going to have to come to some sort of conclusion to try to put an end to this at some point.
There's two things. One, the process that, to me there's two topics. One, the process, which we've all heard, and I think and say the same thing that Mike has said, Brandy has said, Kyle said. I think and say the exact same thing. Number one, the process, how it was done, which was, there's no use to repeat everything, but it was done very, just wasn't done right. It's done wrong, unethical, whatever you want to call it. And, we're here to listen to the people. And so obviously it just flat out was done wrong, and they totally dodged any opportunity. The last leaders dodged any opportunities to listen to the public. Where it was, the 4,000 signatures, whether it was, could have postponed it, like other school divisions did. Our neighbor down the road did. They followed the policy of the society was, they didn't feel that society was, the emotions and everything, so they postponed it. And that was probably the right thing, since society was in an uproar over, a terrible tragedy that happened that shouldn't have happened. I agree. So, I definitely back up it was done wrong, and we need to correct that. Then, if, I honestly feel that we need to come up with a proper procedure, which probably there is one in, possession, but make sure it's, come up with the correct procedure that does include the people. I do, and I've said this since 4 years ago, I said it from the beginning. The two things I always said was, and if anybody knows me, they know I always said it, that is, put it on the ballot, and, let the people in District 1 and District 2 decide. It's their school. It's that simple. If Strasburg wants to change their mascot, I don't want to be a part of it. It's their school. Let them decide. So I've always, I do feel, I am a big supporter of it's District 1 and District 2 or whatever is in that boundary, the southern boundary. It's their school. Let them decide. That's just being fair. So anyway, enough of that it was just done wrong and behind closed doors, and I do think it is kind of odd. It reminds me of how Congress works. If people don't get their way, then all of a sudden they change their views. Like Kyle said, and like the others have said, the school board had the opportunity to do a survey, and they chose not to. And so now an organization does a survey. Now all of a sudden there's some scrambling of another. I do think the survey that was done. It did have a foundation to it. What little bit I know, it was done right. It was, a lot of people had the opportunity. I think it's odd that people, the topic of, now all of a sudden, people that didn't turn it in, their vote should be, or whatever, should be counted. Well, I think that's odd. In any public election, I've never heard that before. In any kind of voting system, I've never heard that before, but all of a sudden now it's a topic. So the other the other thing is I've never heard, I was really at the school board meeting, the last school board meeting, the other topic, the racism topic, I was like, the whole next day at work, I was just, couldn't believe I attended those schools. And I even called some old classmates, and we couldn't recall any racism that really stood out. I can't recall any. I went there 5 years. And so I don't know, I'm just blown away. Now all of a sudden, I've been here my whole life, and now I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of embarrassed. But when we went through Ashby Lee Elementary School, we didn't even know who the school was named after. No one told us. We didn't sit down in class, we didn't show up to class in kindergarten, and they said, oh, well, let's, no one told us anything. We had no idea. That was just the name of the school, and nobody pointed it out. So I don't know, I just thought it was interesting that the young lady said that she thought there was racism, but she was voted as the class president. Well, how is there racism if your whole class voted you as president? To me, that's, when I went through school, that's an honor. To vote somebody to be your class president, you think highly of them. So I didn't really understand that, but good family, great family. Her dad cut our hairs when we were a kid. Always enjoyed going there. So anyway, but that's the second issue. I'm sticking with the first issue in the policy, how it was done. It just wasn't done right. Wasn't done fair, as far as I'm concerned. It wasn't done ethically. And the bottom line, the only thing I got to say, if my level of respect and my level of integrity is higher, then well, it is what it is. How you debate that. But I do want to listen to the citizens of District 1 and District 2. It's their school. And the policy, how it's done.
Well, so I'm going to echo a lot of what my colleagues have said. And it has been interesting reading through all these letters, reading these letters and listening to all the people who have spoken. And there have been some very compelling arguments on both sides. I did like one argument. There was this one lady who said, it's always controversial when you name schools after people. And that is true. Although in this case, I think it has a definite tie to our region. But in the end, I think for me, the biggest argument is what Mr. Streetwich is talking about, is the process and how it was done. I hate that it was done under the cover of COVID. I think we know COVID is going to go down as one of the worst things that has happened to our country. It just has eroded so many aspects of our trust in our government, in our agencies, and in our systems. And it certainly eroded the people's confidence in the school board when it was done the way it was done. And we know that because we're still hearing about it and we're still talking about it. So for all we know that these names that we have right now are non-divisive and they're better, well, they're still divisive because people are still talking about it, and people were very hurt by the fact that their thoughts were not heard when the time was. Like Mr. Gottschall said, the time to have done all those surveys or referendum or whatever was back before the names were changed. And the irony is, if it had been done right, if it had taken all the people's input, if we had done it that way and they had changed the names, we wouldn't be here today. The names would have been changed and that would have been the end of it. However, because it was done in that process, for me personally, I think we need to rectify that mistake. If moving forward we have a groundswell of people saying those names are too divisive, we shouldn't be using those names, then let's do it properly. Let's just go ahead and ask the people. And if at that point you want to change them again, then go for it. But we have to do it in a way that everybody gets heard and that we're following the procedures that we had set forth in this school board. So for me, the surveys, they may be nice and they may advocate for one way or another, but it really doesn't sway me that much. In the end, it's just about how it was done. how it was coordinated, how it was done, sneaky. They were just trying to be very sneaky. And when you read all these emails and hear the people's comments on this, you can definitely see that. Now, I'm District 3, so I do have a little bit of a few people who do go to those schools, not a whole lot. I do tend to think that, yes, the people who go to those schools should probably be making that decision. Let me see if there's anything else. No, that's pretty much, oh yeah, there is one thing that I did want to say. It's just the ugliness that comes about with all this stuff. And I'm not from here. I'm actually from Puerto Rico. And I can tell you, even in Puerto Rico, we have schools that are named after people who we may not have agreed with. I mean, it's all about history. It's about preserving these names for history. And there are some schools named after people who were anti-Spain, others that were anti-US, just people who were leaders in the community, and that's how you keep history alive. I hate this whole idea of rewriting history, and I know we started taking down the monuments, and we started going after Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee, then we moved on to Washington and Jefferson, and right now you go to Charlottesville, and Thomas Jefferson is pretty much persona non grata. I mean, the university that he founded doesn't even want to recognize him because he owned slaves. So, we know it was a wrong, and we're very glad that in this country we have a constitution that we amended and that we had a system where we were able to overturn that. I mean, that is a testament to the system of government that we have, at least in my opinion. But one thing that I don't like is the fact that throughout some of the people talking during the comments, I mean, I think a couple of them actually said that this is a movement by white supremacists. So what you're saying is that some of your neighbors here, people that we know, people that I know well, are being called white supremacists, and I know that they're not. So I wish we could just turn down the rhetoric. Let's just try to keep it down to, what we're supposed to be doing. Let's fix a mistake. If after that the community feels like the names have to be changed, then we do it the right way, and not just hidden and not the sneaky way that we did it before.
Thank you. I have something to say as well. I watched the process unfold in 2020 from afar. I wasn't part of the system, just retired and trying to enjoy myself. And it was awfully disconcerting to watch what was a case study in tamping down democracy. Because during a 9-day window, something was brought before this board, put on an agenda over the 4th of July weekend with 3 days off. Then it was voted on the next week and went into effect in that 1 week span, that 9-day span. During that time, somehow, the citizens of this county got together and got 4,000 signatures to try to fight it. And one of the reasons it was passed so quickly, according to the messages we have from the school board, was that they wanted to get it done quickly before that petition could be dropped. That's pretty sad. That's pretty sad. One of the school board members was looped out entirely, ignored because it was feared that he would vote. He wouldn't vote for the new names, so he was just ignored and not given the information about what was happening. It did happen during the pandemic. Supreme Court now looks back and says it should never have done non-essential business, and this group just actually took it as a super advantage to squelch not only petitions and input, but people being able to speak their mind. We, on the school board 2 years ago, tried to take another look at it and said, do you want to do it again? And 1 week, we had a 6-0 vote among the school board to have a survey done of the southern campus. Everybody in the school board agreed, 100%. And the superintendent got together the survey, it was ready to brief it, and when we came in, the chairman of the school board announced somehow magically the board had changed its decision in the last month, and they were not going to do the survey. Quite remarkable. Talk about breaking your board dorms. So, yeah, it was done badly. hard to imagine anything, and it was being pretty much orchestrated from the previous superintendent's office, which was even. Now, I have to tell you, fast forward, what bothers me, some of the people who did that in the meantime have said to me, we're so sorry we did it. We did it the wrong way. We're so sorry we did it. But they're out there hustling now, going to WHSV and other places, talking about why we have to be stifled again from looking at this. So those people who cried crocodile tears on the last school board are out there being activists now, trying one more time to have impact this. So, yeah, I mean, the whole process really, really smells. Anti-democratic attitude of some elitists is what I smell there. One thing I haven't heard mentioned tonight and bothers me is how so many people were quick to come up and say that anybody participated in Civil War was a racist and a slaver, and anybody who speaks up in favor of the courage or gallantry or Christianity or whatever, somebody like Stonewall Jackson, is a racist. And that's just such a, as a historian, such a rotten way to look at history. We are a tapestry of different peoples with different points of view. And right, you can go to Malcolm X High School in this country, you can go to Eleanor Roosevelt High School in this country, you can go to Albert Einstein's high school in this country. It generally has to do with where you live, what's happened. It doesn't mean that you have to be Albert Einstein or Eleanor Roosevelt. The only place that, or the place that Stonewall Jackson is most revered is for what he's done in the Shenandoah Valley. We live in Shenandoah County. Okay, I think there's history there. And in that same regard, these same people kind of demonize anything of the Confederacy and lionize anything of the North. Anybody knows anything about the history of the Civil War in this county knows that the people who were oppressed, the people who had their barns set on fire, and the people who had their stock killed, and the people who had their wives raped, were indeed, Northern soldiers coming through here. My family is from the North. We had relatives in the Northern Army. When I was a kid, we used to take turns playing Rebels and Johnny Reb and Billy Yank because it was part of American valor and history, but we found out later it was also part of war, and war is hell, as one of the people who came through burning our valley said. War is hell. It is. And it's not just hell because one side's good guys and the other side's bad guys. So the great thing about America, we pretty much try to look at the whole picture and take away the good and learn from the bad. And I think that we have tried to kind of lionize, and that's what bothers me about a lot of this is we have come to these generalizations about all the groups involved. That's a very sad thing that I think that we've done. The survey that the Coalition for Better Schools has done is kind of a robust. It doesn't meet all the tests of validity, but when you get a 9-to-1 response, the things go out to all individual households. It's reason to consider it. I'm shocked that those who oppose to it haven't asked for the school board to do, or the school system to do a survey, because I would have thought that's something they would have liked, but they didn't bring that forward. So I think it's quite interesting. Instead, they've done a laughable, I don't know who it is because it's anonymous, phone. Never mind. It's such a bad survey. It's not even worth talking about. It's certainly not valid. Anyway, school traditions. The people who, the guys like the Street family and others who've built up the Southern campus and been part of it and got lettered there and cheerleaders there. And I mean, I don't think it's right that people come in from retire down here and say, by the way, I don't like your school name. But that's okay. They're stakeholders too. So, let's join in. Let's have a big discussion about it. It's fine with me. So I think we ought to take a good hard look at what's happened and do the right thing. I'm long in the tooth. I remember, when I was a child of the 50s and 60s, and so I was taught that taking the hard stand when it's right is what will happen when you meet the crises in your life. And I took a lot of heat-seeking rounds of the chest 2 years ago when we did this, and I'm sure it's going to happen again. That's the way it is. That's okay. We can live through that. I will say, if I were to look at this from the eyes of somebody who was a black student or a black parent, I'd be unsettled. I'd be unsettled about going back. And so I have to be honest with you. But I'll say this as well. No matter what I just said or how I feel, if I felt or see in the future any whiff of racism in this, you'll be surprised how fast I'm going to switch over and vote the other way. So if we have a group of people out there who think this is their way to make a statement for white supremacy, they better beware, because if any of that stuff, now some people have accused us of it, but they accuse us of it every way. I mean, I just think it's laughable that I have an ancestor who was a Civil War general at the Battle of Gettysburg. I didn't want to say this, but he started the retreat for the North that day. We try not to remember that in the family. But those things are past, but nobody, because he wore blue, is necessarily not a racist, and because they wore gray, were racist. And less than 1% of those people fought for slavery. So I don't want to see us returning to that stuff like 1959, where we're trying to, resurrect this concept of white supremacy or or any kind of racism. When I say any kind of racism, I mean any kind of racism. I mean black racism or white racism. So I'm going to be keeping my antenna up the next couple of weeks and seeing what happens. But I don't think we've had a very balanced view of this from. There have been a lot of people who have spoken who've been emotional for good reasons, and then a lot who have just come in here with a lot of kind of bumper sticker propaganda stuff, which I'm not paying much attention to. But I just want to, even at this point in my life, do the right thing even when it's hard. But I want to make sure it's the right thing, and we don't know. I do not want to be the. I'm trying to look for the right for the. I don't want to be anybody's tool to use this as some way of reliving the Civil War or of white nationalism. So, but I'm not going to be scared away. There's a lot of people my age, my economic group, who are telling me, why don't you just forget this and let it go? And I think that would be the comfortable thing to do. But I also think it would be the wrong thing to do. Okay.
Sorry, but listening to all of you all, it triggered things that I had wanted to speak about earlier. First of all, what Tom said about his childhood at Ashby Lee and Mount Stonewall Jackson, I feel like we're doing a disservice to Stonewall Jackson High School if we let it be portrayed this way, that it is about racism. This is a direct paragraph from Dr. Johnston's email that went out to the whole county, every staff member, and every parent, and all the students on June 10th, 2020. So this was 1 month before they changed the names. He said, I will also share up front that I have received inquiries about changing the name of Stonewall Jackson High School. It is not the name of a school that matters as much as the culture of that school, and that those students who attend the school are free from bias and discrimination. Our school board policies specifically address that we do not tolerate discrimination based on race, ethnicity, gender, etc. Stonewall Jackson High School is a warm and welcoming school because the students, teachers, administrators, and parents have made it so. It has the highest rate of dual enrollment course completion in the division. It is diverse, and that diversity is celebrated through formal and informal school events. At this time, I believe that we should be coming together rather than finding things that push us apart. I know of high schools that have racial divisions that have generic names. That being said, I recognize that this is not a decision to be made by a superintendent, but by the school board and the community. Those were his exact words 1 month before the school names were changed. Another thing that you all hit on was the survey from the weekend. I had several voters in my district reach out to me about these text messages they were getting. I just want to point out, if you're going to do a survey that you want me to look at, don't include political affiliation, race, sex, or age. I could care less about any of that. All I want to know is, are you a taxpayer in this county? And that's it. If you're a taxpayer in this county, you've got a voice. On this issue, I'll leave it like I said before, District 1, District 2. Dennis, you brought up WHSV. Has WHSV reached out to any of us six to comment on this or to ask questions about it? Because I know they interviewed a couple previous board members. Have they reached out to any of you all?
What's that?
TV station out of Harrisonburg? Okay, I just wanted clarity. With that, I'll let it rest.
You know, I'm reading the bottom of this. If you knew Dr. Johnston, this was his out here. This was his, that bottom line there was his, it's not me doing this, it's them doing this. Don't be upset with me. Even though all the emails in the back,
I was going to say.
he clearly talks about, you know, his time in Arlington and you know, the talk about hurrying up and getting this done because it could get ugly. And Johnston was a master at, well, a lot of things, but he propagandized. This all looks pretty, but it was his way of bowing out and not taking responsibility for the back end of what he was doing. And we're still cleaning up the mess.
Any other school board comments before we move to action items?
Thank you for clarifying that. I had said earlier that Johnston had pulled some of the strings on the school
Yep.
board later on.
Yep.
Thank you for reminding the public of that.
Is there any desire that we take a break? We only have 3 action items and then the report, so we drive through. Okay, very good. So we are going to move into 4.1, the adoption of fiscal year 2025 budget.
I move to approve the fiscal year 2025 budget as presented with a 3.25% cost of living adjustment for staff.
Wait, no.
Mr. Gutschall has moved for what is the first recommended motion under our action.
I second.
It has been seconded by Mrs. Rutz. Is there discussion on that motion?
I'd like to start out, and I said it a few months ago, Dr. Shepard presented us a budget that was stripped down to exactly what we need at this point, and then we had to cut it back even further, which is tough. You know, approximately 90% of our budget is people, so in fact, we're bringing more people on with some new some positions that we had that was CARES funded at the time. But I believe that her recommendation is, it's good to go, in my view. We're, again, addressing insurance, didn't make all the strides that may have wanted to, but definitely going in the right direction there. And, you know, obviously the 3.25% raise for all staff members. So also the capital improvement, well put together, and hopefully we can continue to address those issues that we have in future years.
Mike?
I'd just like to go back to our last meeting, school board meeting. We voted to have a survey done of all of our staff. Our staff came in at over 50%. said that the step was important to them and that they would like to see the COLA plus the step. Anything less is non-starter with me. I won't vote for anything without a step.
And what's the difference between the 3.25 and the COLA and STEP?
So the COLA would be a 2.1% cost of living adjustment plus a step, and it's 17,000?
Again, for this year, a teacher would be getting less because of this.
It's
Bus
what they
driver.
asked for. They voted on it.
I will quote what I said in an email, and you can FOIA if you want, is I would not be held hostage by a survey. And I think there's some education that needs to go on as far as these steps, because again, a teacher is getting less this year because of this step. A bus driver is getting much less because of this step. There's other areas that are getting less because of a step. And I think there's a lot of, I mean, I'm no expert, but I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there of how these steps work. And again, if you're in support of it, that's fine. I'm going to go with the recommendation from the superintendent. Again, teachers getting less this year because of a step.
A teacher would be getting .05 less, .05. They asked for the step. So 2.1 plus their step is 1.1, correct, Dr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Would be 3.2. That's 0.05% less. I doubt they're losing sleep over 0.05%. They wanted their step. I spent many a long hour talking to teachers, staff in this county, and everybody I talked to, from admin all the way down to bus drivers, said the step was important. That's why we did the survey. We heard the staff. It's their pay, it's their benefits.
I just wanted to add, because I mean, obviously for us, it doesn't make a difference, it's gonna be the same amount of money, but one thing we have been working very hard is, as a personnel committee, is trying to listen to their teachers and to our staff and trying to make them happy as they stay here. And, I mean, when we did this survey, what we have here is 58% of the people who answered were teachers. So 58% were teachers. And of those, 61% said that they wanted the COLA and the step. So that's a pretty good majority. I will be the first to say I don't fully understand still the whole thing with a step or no step, but I have been talking to a lot of different people from different districts around the Commonwealth, and one of the things that I have heard is they pretty much all give steps. They always say that it's a matter of respect for the teachers. When I was comparing kind of what we've done over the last few years with the steps, nobody can believe that we're so far behind on those steps. And another thing that they said is that usually when you have to then catch up years later, it's going to cost a lot more money and become a lot harder. So I still think we should go with a step. That's what they said. It's not my money. It's not my salary or my step. That's what they want. So I'm going to have to listen to them and what they want.
Tom, did you vote?
Yeah, I agree with a couple things being said here. And one, when I looked into it and talked to people, I really don't understand our step chart. I don't understand why it varies so much. But I didn't develop it, even though I may not understand it. So anyway, but what it comes down to is, we just talked about supporting majority, what people say and what people want. So even though I may not quite understand it, but the bottom line is what supersedes that is if the teachers and the staff were surveyed and they chose what they want. Well, 61%, if they want the 2.1 plus a step, well, how am I supposed to not support that if that's what the majority wanted? Now, I may somewhat support a little bit since I didn't, whether they understand it fully or whether they don't, I don't know. But the bottom line is I have to support what the majority of the staff wants. I don't know how you could, don't take us the wrong way, but if you don't support that, then what are you saying?
I don't know if this is proper, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Dr. Shepherd, when you were making the presentation earlier, and you showed the pie charts that went up there, one of them indicated that majority who wanted the step. And then you put another pie chart up that showed another distribution, and that's, I think, from which you devised your plan here. Is that, do I have that right?
Yep, so what the staff said is that they would like, 41% would like the, a combination of the health insurance, a decrease in health, if the school board had to decrease the budget, what would they want? And it was 41% said that they wanted to decrease it both in health insurance and in salary. But based on my recommendation for a 3.25% instead of a 2.1% plus a step is based on, we had over teachers. There were 301 responses of teachers, which is a good number. Probably we have 350, 375 teachers. Oh, 550. So a little over half. But we had 17 responses from bus drivers. So their voice wasn't necessarily heard. Out of 120 bus drivers, we had 17 respond.
Could you put the chart back up with the COLA and what that ends up being? What the total increase is going to be. And for me, as you can see with this step, not everybody, the salary increase isn't the same across the board. And some of them are going to be higher than the 3.25, the flat. Not that clerical doesn't need more money on the base end or whatever, but, we've got 3.6, 3.85, 3.0. Why somebody else is getting a 2.94. Like I said, the step is something that has never made sense to me, but it's government created. And I don't know, if you go on to the next page, 3.8, 3.89, that means some folks are going to get closer to a 4% raise, where others will not. It baffles me that we have such a spread, and we don't do merit increases. I mean, we're so worried about everybody making the same amount of pay, but we don't do merit increases. But we'll give a step that puts somebody else way above somebody else. I don't know. I know that people aren't leaving here because of money. They're leaving here because of the environment, and they're leaving here because of discipline. And we're working very hard to send those messages home. You can still come here fresh out of high school as a teacher and start at $52,000. The per capita income in this county for two people is like at 58. So, at some point, while I'm all in agreement that teachers, we need to keep up with cost of living, we need to keep at some point, we can't continue to write checks that the county citizenry can't sustain either. So, like I said, I agree. The survey, things of that nature. You also have a fiscal responsibility to your taxpayers. So, there are some folks that certainly would want more money than a 3.25. They'd be happy with the point of 3.80 or a 3.89. But what for me keeps coming back is this is the starting point for next year's budget, and the budget never ever goes backwards. So it just never decreases. We never say, hey, sorry, we're putting a freeze on this, or anything else. We just continuously, and we're adding six new positions, I'm guessing, that wasn't in the budget 4 years ago, which is a huge amount of money, $1 million worth. And those folks are going to be continuing on here as well. So the asks are never ending, and I'm, a little hesitant to bump it up ever so slightly because that becomes our new bottom.
I have a comment that when I taught, only teachers got steps. And the idea was that if somebody spends 40 years in the classroom, then they should find ways to have an increase as also with those who are staff and other support personnel who have a different, some are professionals, some are service support, so different bins of people. But at least this was supposed to take the teacher who wanted to be a career teacher and gave them a chance to go up when they got a master's degree or went to 5 or 10 year. But as I see what has happened to it, it has now all these bins, almost all of them, have step aspects, and somehow, which I don't understand, don't think I want to, they're different for every bin. So it's almost too bad we started down this arcane road of having two different types of raises. And I guess there's no going back, but it sure looks easier when I look at the COLA and see, 3.25 and no step, as opposed to 2.1 and then 1.74 and then 1.79. And it just seems like we've made ourselves a very complicated world here by having the COLA and the step. Actually, absolutely understanding that there are people out there that say, I want it. So yeah, well, there it is. So that's not much clarification, just a little rant.
I would like to point out too, that the mechanics and the maintenance positions on here and their steps, I don't know what they're making right now, but I can tell you, being in that line of work, there's continuing education that goes into that. There's certifications those guys have to pay to keep year after year after year. I have 4 licenses, 4 journeyman electrical licenses that I have to pay. Some are 2 years, some are 3 years. They're hefty amounts of money. They come out of my pocket just so I can do what I do. Those maintenance guys and those mechanics, I'm sure they've got the same.
Which of our positions have continuing education credits that they have to take?
So teachers, athletic trainers,
Uh-huh.
admin. Mechanics and maintenance, some, not all.
Mhm.
Bus drivers have to get a physical every year.
Any other questions before we call the
Well-
question?
I guess what intrigues me is, you mean, how long has this step thing been in, how long has this been in play or process?
As
How long has
long
it
as
been
I can
established?
remember. Yeah,
Huh?
as long as I can remember.
That's my point. And it just intrigues me that it has now come to attention of all the different figures, has just now come to attention, and this has never been.
It's brought up every budget. I
Well, yeah,
can
but-
remember going last year and
But,
watching.
but then why wasn't it ever fixed? I mean, if we have a problem with these numbers, which I do, I get it. I don't, when I looked into it and researched it, and I'm like, well, you see it. Why is that? Well, I don't know. I don't know. Well, who did this? I don't know. So if it's something that doesn't provide answers, and we all don't understand, and we all kind of don't agree, then how come this has never been addressed? That intrigues me that it's just now, that blows my mind. So, and it's just now a topic, how do we make this fair? Well, why wasn't that done 10 years ago, how to make this fair? So,
Hasn't this been reworked since you've been superintendent with our county?
Some of them, Some of them have been reworked, so the nurse, the bus drivers, the teachers, a couple others, custodians.
That's been
food
reworked?
service have been reworked. But you have to realize, in order to get the right amount between each step so people aren't losing, you have to go with a different percentage between each of the steps.
So if it was
So
reworked,
If we were going to change every scale so there was a step that was the same amount, you would have to go with your highest percentage of step, which would be 1.75%, and work from there.
we'll go back so you can educate me. So how did y'all come up with, all right, the lowest number is 1% step for bus drivers. Custodians 1.5. So how did y'all come up with that?
Based on how the scale was developed previously.
Okay, yeah, but I need to like put it in layman's terms. What are you saying? That custodians?
Okay, let's just take bus drivers, for example, and I'm going to use round numbers. So say it started at 20,000 and ended at 25,000. There was a percentage between each step. So in order to revisit that, so that our bus drivers were making more money because we couldn't hire bus drivers, we increased the scale and either kept the same percentage or increased the percentage so nobody on that scale was making less money.
So are you saying that the 1% step for bus drivers is fair to a 1.5% step for a custodian? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that, no.
Okay.
No.
I think what she's saying is you can't compare the two positions.
No, and
So then why is it an issue then?
I would like to add just a little bit of information. I've not ever been able to explain this step because I think that it's a perception. One of our supervisors was talking to his staff and he asked them, you know, why do you value a step? And here was the answer from one of the employees. It was because it feels like we're losing something if we don't get a step. It feels like they're taking something away.
Which is strange, because I heard from admin up in Pennsylvania that said the step is important. They tried explaining it to me. I told y'all the last time, I think I get it to a point, but I've heard so many different stories. I wouldn't be able to educate somebody on it. But this was, my daughter had a roommate down at JMU. Her parents were both teachers in Pennsylvania, and they were like, we've never not gotten a step. You talk to other counties here, Northern Virginia, they get a step every time.
Well, and I did call. I called a bunch of them. They're all giving steps. And my concern wasn't. I think it was you who actually put it up that we've only given 3 or 4 steps in the last 14 years. Or 15 years. I mean, that's when I show that to people from other places. They cannot believe that Shenandoah County gets away with that.
But when people are leaving, how many times have we heard it's a step? I haven't heard that once in 2-3 years.
Well, but it's part of the respect. A lot of them say that this to them is kind of how they feel appreciated, or they feel like.
But is it like Dr. Shepard said? Is there actually something to it, or is it just feelings?
Well, if they're gonna leave to go to another district, is that gonna play when they go get
No.
hired somewhere else,
No,
or when somebody else comes here?
No, that's a misperception. So if I'm a teacher and I have 20 years of experience, I'm going to go on year 20. If I'm a teacher and I go to Frederick County or Harrisonburg City, they're going to give me 20 years of experience. So if Dr. Hungartner comes and he has 15 years of experience, he's not going to go on step 25. He's going to go at 15 years of experience. So it's a misperception.
On top of that, you know, you have to understand that each one of the districts around us have a bigger budget too. So their pay scales are slightly different. We're always trying to play catch up. And why I understand the whole respect thing and the why you think that you're losing something. In the last couple years, I mean, we've averaged, and I had that. I have to see if I can find it again. I mean, last year we started off our budget with 7%. The ask was 7% in a step. I mean, we've had years that there's been almost 10% increase in salaries. in 1 year. You know, and those things are different compared to, you know, what that looks like for a bus driver and what that may look like for admin and central office staff is starkly different. But again, I keep going back to the fact that this is going to be the new baseline because we never go backwards. But they're not leaving. They're not leaving because of money. I mean, and there was, I think I sent you all, every year that they've gotten an increase, our turnover rate is pretty much the same. It hasn't decreased. That hasn't left. I mean, they're not leaving because of that. And the surveys that Mrs. Hodges has given us for the last 2 years indicate that money falls way far down on the list of reasons on why we're not retaining teachers.
Well, but this debate doesn't really affect that because we're talking, it's going to be either half a dozen of one or, 6 of one,
Yeah, I mean,
half of the
But
other.
when you use the argument that we have to keep them happy so they don't leave, that's a misconception.
Well, no, but they do, and actually I've heard it many times, they don't feel appreciated, they don't feel like they're being taken seriously. So this is a perfect example. We asked them, what do you want? They want the step, and now we're saying, okay, well, yeah, you don't really know what you want. You don't really know what you're talking about. We know better. We're going to give you what we think you want. That's the kind of respect that they're talking about. But when we're talking about the money, it's pretty much the same money, just split up in different ways. But that's what we're talking about. They are talking about being appreciated. They are talking about being listened to. They are talking about how it is that we're treating them. And right now, we're just saying, you don't know enough.
Another thing about the exit survey, we're talking about people that are leaving the county. How many stay because you give them the 6% or whatever it was last year? Or they're making a decision right now and they're like, man, we're being given the opportunity to get a step. I might stay if I'm actually heard this time instead of just overlooked.
I find it very difficult to think that people leave for the little bit of money to get themselves on the road, to give up their time, to put in for their cars, the maintenance.
Now, you would think a more compelling argument would be, I got 3.25% as opposed to 2.1%.
Yeah, because I got more money in my pocket.
So, okay,
Yeah.
so.
They're not getting
it's all sense of perception
2.1%.
And how it's explained, and to me, trying to understand what the step means to myself or to that teacher or bus driver is just, how many minutes have we spent on this issue in the last 3 meetings? Because none of us understands it. Or how it got there.
But we asked them what they wanted and they told us. Who are we to change that?
Or to sound that we know better.
Personally, for me, I'm going to trust the superintendent of the school division and what she thinks. And I think she knows best compared to all of us. At least she has the most knowledge on how this works. And although we're obviously still learning, and it'll take 4 years to learn, it'll take me. I'll never learn it probably completely, but I still try anyways. So I'm going to put my trust into her. Whether you all want to go a different route, we'll see. But that's how I'm viewing it.
Anybody want to call for the question?
Well, I just want to make one more comment. I don't think it's a matter of whether we trust our superintendent or whether we don't. I mean, I definitely trust the superintendent. That's not the issue. And I don't think the issue is, I don't see this whether staff members stay, leave. I'm sorry, all that's irrelevant to me. What supersedes this whole topic is we took the time and the effort, or we, I say we, she, whoever, the personnel, to reach out to the employees and ask what do they want. Now, if they didn't if somebody asked me, Tom, what do you decide on your pay? Well, if Tom doesn't understand it, guess what? Like always, Tom picks up the phone and finds out and to understand. So, if the ones didn't do that, well, shame on them. Obviously, it wasn't important to them. So the bottom, what supersedes it to me is why in the future, if we're ever going to send surveys out, I'm going to question it probably. Why send a survey out if you're not going to follow it? I mean, I'm sorry, but why do it?
I will say again that I agreed to the survey, but again, I said I would not.
That's fine, that's fine. All I'm saying is, I'm gonna stick, what supersedes all these discussions, that I think some are irrelevant, is the survey was sent out. They should have took it upon themselves to look into it, and the results came in, 61%. And if we're not going to, if I'm not, you know, all I'm saying is I have to follow that, because if I don't, then I'm pretty much saying there's no need for surveys in the future. That's all I'm saying.
And that makes, that, I can understand that. The thing is your job isn't, and our job here isn't exactly to, in management, isn't always to give everything that the employee wants. You wanted to know where they stood on things. And, you know, you could have put 7% in the step, and I'm sure all of them would have picked 7% in the step. Again, we have a responsibility to the taxpayer, and we have to cut cost, and we've been asked by the Board of Supervisors to do that, to get to a certain number. What is the best way to do it? So.
Wait, but we're getting to
And-
the number either
Right,
way.
it's the same number.
This
Yeah, it's
year.
the same number. Yeah, but we're still getting to the same number.
Dr. Shepherd has worked, I would assume tirelessly, and Ms. Stein, to figure out what those magic numbers are to make them balance. 2.1% plus a step and 3.25% flat. They both come out to pretty much the same in the end.
But like Brandy said, it moves the goalpost every year. You're moving every year. So next year, we'll submit a budget. It'll get cut most likely, and we'll have to come back and do this all over again. But it'll be, you know, it can be the same to get through this year, but it's not going to continue to be that same every year. That's my concern. I've said it before, but
But let me ask you a question. I mean, are we doing something different with the cost of living adjustment? Because usually when you do a cost of living adjustment, that becomes the new base.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand how you're saying that next year is going to be different. I mean, once you do that COLA, that becomes the new base.
Plus your step.
Yeah, but it's either you're going to get this COLA or this COLA and a step. So in the end, you're going to be in the same place. So saying that it's going to be one more costly than the other, no, it's the same. It's just whether how you're going to disperse it.
I'd like to call the question.
Okay, we have a motion to call the question. And the motion on the floor is to approve the 2025 budget as presented with a 3.25 cost of living adjustment for staff.
No step. The no step, right? Yeah.
No step?
Yeah.
That's right. Mrs. Jett, do you want to call the roll?
Mr. Straight?
No.
Ms. Carlinia?
No.
Mr. Gutschall?
Yes.
Ms. Roots?
Yes.
Mr. Rickard?
No.
Mr. Barlow?
Yes. The motion fails on a 3-3 vote.
So I have to make a motion to pass the, hold on, just totally swinging it. Okay, so we'll make the motion now to pass the budget with the 2.1 COLA and a step.
Second?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Yeah, so we're gonna, I'm trying to see where the motion is. I would like to make a motion that we will pass the budget with a 2.1 COLA and a step.
So the motion is to approve the 2025 budget as presented with a 2.1
Yep.
cost of living adjustment
Plus a-
plus a step for staff.
That's
Does my
Do we have
second
a-
stand?
Sorry?
Does my second stand, or do I
Yes.
need?
Yes.
That's, I just wanted to clarify the motion. So the motion is made by Mrs. Carlinio and is seconded by Mr. Rickard Stans, and we're ready for discussion on second motion.
Do we get to discuss this all
Oh,
again?
no.
You want to just play it back?
Rewind?
Ditto.
Move to call the question.
Mrs. Jett?
Mr. Street?
Yes.
Ms. Carlinia?
Yes.
Mr. Gutschall?
No.
Ms. Rhodes?
Yes.
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 Mr. Rickard?
Yes.
And Mr. Barlow?
No. The ayes have it, 4 votes to 2. Do I have that right, Mrs. Jett? So the recommended action has passed. Second motion to move to approve the 2025 budget is presented with a 2.1 cost of living adjustment plus a step for staff. Next action item is 4.2. Do I hear a motion to approve the health insurance premiums?
I move to approve the health insurance premiums as presented.
Second.
Motion was made by Mr. Rickard and seconded by Mr. Street. Discussion. If there's no discussion, we want to move into the vote.
Mr. Street?
Move the question? Okay. Go ahead, Mrs. Jett, I'm sorry. Hold the numbers.
Yes.
Ms. Carlinia?
Yes.
Mr. Gutschall?
Yes.
Ms. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Rickard?
Yes.
Mr. Barlow?
Yes. Taking myself out. All right, 4.3, personnel.
I move to approve the personnel list as presented.
Second?
Richard has made the motion. Motion has been seconded by Mrs. Carlinio to approve the personnel list as they have been presented. Mrs. Jett?
Mr. Street?
Yes.
Ms. Carlinia?
Yes.
Mr. Gutschall?
Yes.
Ms. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Rickard?
Yes.
Mr. Barlow?
Yes. Right, that concludes the action agenda items this evening. All that remains, as I understand it, are school board member comments. Anybody wants to start? Go for it.
I'll start. I had the pleasure of attending the award ceremony for the kids at the WRE banquet in Strasburg. I've just got to applaud all the staff that has anything to do with that. Mr. Bowers, George Bowers, his staff. Man, what a phenomenal group of kids. The one thing that I've been able to attend recently, of course, I wanted to attend the FFA banquet at the high school tonight, but here we are. I got to say, how enlightening to see how many young kids, second, third, and fourth graders, that are taking the initiative to go and learn about God. It was very moving. And the staff, and to see how much they put into it and their hearts. I mean, it's a wonderful thing. And if we can grow that program, make it available to fifth graders, I'm all for it. To me, there's no better program for us to have but to offer that. And to see how many kids give up their study time that I imagine they have to make up later on in the day. It was very moving to see, and I want to applaud everybody and anybody that has to do with WRE and Shenandoah County. That was unreal. Next thing I'd like to talk about is possibly moving the board meeting to a bigger place for next month. If we're going to be talking about Stonewall Jackson High School, I imagine we're going to get a big turnout. I don't know, you guys have 2 years of experience, so I lean to you guys on that. I don't know what we need to do. I know the Board of Supervisors sometimes goes to a bigger venue when they're expecting a bigger turnout. I'd just like to put it out there. Other than that, I'm glad we were able to get through this thing. We're looking at 9 o'clock right now. It's much better than 12:15. That's all I've got right now.
Thank you, Mr. Rickard. Next.
I can go. Couple of things. One was this last Saturday, I was at the special ed fair that we had here at Central, and it was actually pretty well attended. It was a beautiful day, and there was a lot of people, so that was I was glad to be there. Also, we have a 2 personnel committees meetings coming up. The one that we did in the Central campus was very well attended. Now we're going to do that one in the Northern campus, one in the Southern campus. Oh goodness, and I have the dates are the 6th and the 8th of May, but I can't remember which one is which. Which one is north and which one is south?
I don't know that we picked.
Okay, so, well, then, so we'll keep you guys posted on that, but that'll be the 6th and the 8th. I mean, anybody is invited, so if somebody from the north wants to go to the south, it'll be a good way to get ready for that meeting on the 9th. But in addition to that, yesterday I attended via Zoom a really good presentation by the School Board Members Alliance on human trafficking and how it goes on in the schools. They had an organization, they had a parent talking about it. It was pretty shocking to find out that about 90% of the victims of minors are still living at home and attending school every day. A lot of them just get picked out after they sign into class, and then they're trafficked during the day, and usually they're brought back into the school just in time to get on the bus and go home. So there were a lot of really sad stories, and I'm hoping to see if maybe that's something we can bring up in the mental health task force and see if we can at least bring that course to teach maybe to our SROs and our teachers as well, and hopefully parents, because this is a real problem that we have, and it's not just one socioeconomic group, and it's not just one, ethnicity. It's affecting everybody. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
Nothing.
You pass?
Pass.
Okay.
Um,
Don't wrap it up.
But,
Tom.
I'll say something real quick. As we know, the school year is kind of coming to an end, and I apologize. There's a lot of things out there to attend, and try to do my best, but I do apologize with work, and it seems like if there is something going on, then your son has a ball game, and but hopefully be able to get to some things here at the end of the year, especially if there's refreshments. But anyway, but I will back up what Mike said with the WRE. That is a great program, and definitely support it, and definitely like to see it grow. Mr. Byers has a great thing going there. So, but anyway, that's all.
Yeah, I attended the WR thing too, and I appreciate what you do. So, thank you, Pastor, what you do, and the whole team. You covered the county really well, and I was especially gratified to see I have to say, just flat out, our staff there. Where I teach, we wouldn't have seen any teachers or staff have the guts to go into something that was as religious as that. They'd want to maintain their secular status, and I thought that was awfully positive. I really like that aspect of it. I also want to commend Dr. Shepard and Angie Stein for what has been, for them, I know, a grueling budget season, but it has been, in my time, the most transparent that we've seen. I've seen the staff do the most to try to see what we were trying to develop tonight, which is a good quid pro quo and all of these things, and trying to put it together. I've been part of organizations that when they have to make a 10% slice, they make a salami slice, and it doesn't necessarily take off what you want to take off. So you've got to look at each interacting part and see how it affects the others. And I think that's been done very well. We heard a member at the, I'm trying to think, the Noah Webster, talk about oversight. And we invited one of those people up here, and the superintendent was very positive about inviting folks in here to take a look at what we do. Transparency, no hidden agendas, and it's been other than the discussions on the staff, it's been a really, really good process, because we were aware all the way through what was happening. And I do want to commend Tom Street for bringing a lot of interest and knowledge into the realm of the buses and fuels and efficient running, and he has been received marvelously well by the staff. Just going in there cold but doing it respectfully and asking permission, and he's gotten a lot of really good things going for that personal initiative of a school board member working with the staff. And Mr. Rickard has done the same thing as far as it comes with the lights, and it's interesting that the lights and the standards and so forth have come under greater review because of your personal attention to it. So I think that is something I haven't seen happen on the school board that I think is really a good way ahead. It's something good to do. So as we kind of wind down this budget season, I see a lot of positive things, and I think we may want to. I know we always talk about starting work earlier on this, but I think working closer with the Board of Supervisors, and some of that was engendered by some members here, helped us get a little closer, and we may want to take a few more steps to trying to solve the step problem or other things that are, just complex. But anyway, I still thought it was a good season for looking at our budget and where the money goes and where it comes from. Maybe we don't think enough about where it comes from, and I'm thinking there has to be some. This isn't our concern. It's our concern, not our responsibility. It's to making sure some people pay a little bit more of what they should be paying for the educational product that's coming out of this fine system. So we'll see where that might go next year. Other than that, I have nothing else to say. If nobody else has anything to say, I'm going to bring the curtain down on this meeting at...
Thank you to all these folks that hung out and stayed through the whole meeting. We appreciate you all.
I don't know why, but we appreciate it. At 9:10, we're adjourned.
I just want you to know it.
We're all ready.